Track 18, 21.1, Exercise 4, Part 2.
There's no doubt that things have improved over time. We look back to the high-rise buildings of the 1960s where people were sometimes uprooted from established communities and forced to live in ugly concrete blocks against their will. Yet we should remember that this was a time when many people wanted to be rehoused because their living conditions were so bad. And this was a policy upheld by government rather than decided by architects. So the situation has changed for the better. It seems that lack of consultation over new buildings is rarely an issue with the public nowadays. The fact of the matter is that there are much tougher planning regulations in place than was previously the case. I should underline my personal experience here. For 6 years of my childhood, I was in a tower block in quite a run-down part of Bristol, so I do know what it's like. That's largely what drove me to become an architect, actually. Yes, some 60s architecture is poor, but the point is, if it hadn't happened, we would be making similar mistakes today, whereas as it is, we have been able to learn from it and move on. For one thing, the buildings being put up today generally have better materials than in the past, certainly in comparison with the 1960s. A lot more thought goes into this aspect, with the upside that new buildings look more attractive as a result. Then there are the environmental considerations. We have to design buildings that are efficient. So for us in Britain, that means paying particular attention to things like heating. Of course, that particular requirement wouldn't be an issue for architects in southern Europe. Something that does trouble me is urban sprawl, by which I mean the endless suburbs, and their existence is at a huge cost to the tax-paying public in terms of upkeep. Basic services like drainage, road maintenance, that sort of thing. City expansion isn't very good news for the countryside either. At the same time, there's sometimes appalling decay in the middle of our cities as a direct result of this move outwards. Shops in the centre have closed because of out-of-town facilities, and people are forced to drive when once they bought locally. That's not sustainable, is it? What I believe in, and what many architects are trying to work towards, is the regeneration of our city centres. But this can only happen if we think vertically. Design skyscrapers, in other words. There's no space to do anything else. It's a really exciting development that could breathe new life into our cities. Imagine if your building was a multi-use one, where you just go downstairs to a jazz club or across the street to pick up some late-night shopping. This is the upmarket housing of the future, where no one will need to own a car. In a recent radio phone-in, 67% of callers thought that the car should be banned altogether from central London. I truly think people are ready for this. They understand that traffic is slowly killing us. Living in the city has to become a healthier and more acceptable option.